So now that the Under Armour All-American game is in the books, I think the college football world collectively is watching what the only unsigned prospect in the top 10 players of the class of 2023 is going to do. And of course, today we're talking about Cormani McClain, the number 2 player in the class of 2023 and the number 1 cornerback in the nation. Cormani McClain announced that he will be signing on January 15th, and though he remains committed to the Miami Hurricanes, there are 2 other players that have entered into this battle that we've got to discuss. Before we can, as always, y'all know the drill. I have got to hear from you. Hop down to the comments, give me a Y for yes or an N for no. Do you believe Cormani McClain ends up with Miami? And let me know what you're thinking. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. Hit that bell notification. I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. And if you enjoyed the content, be sure to like and comment down below. We're on a push to 20,000 subscribers. I'd love to have you a part of this unbelievable community. But having said all that, let's jump right into this. And Cormani McClain is a prospect that's from the state of Florida. So if you're the Miami Hurricanes, this would be a huge win. Mario Cristobal can recruit with the best of them. This is something we've understood for quite some time. If you were aware of what he was doing when he was the head coach of Oregon, you were probably impressed by his efforts on the recruiting trail and remain impressed by his efforts on the recruiting trail while at Miami. And if he is able to sign Cormani McClain and keep the number 1 cornerback in the nation in the state of Florida, that would be a huge win. Now, for Miami, I think the biggest thing going for you are these factors right here. First and foremost, he'd be able to stay home and play in close proximity to family. Whether that's a massive factor for Cormani McClain remains to be seen, but it is a factor nonetheless. Number 2, and what I find very compelling, is DVD, DeMarcus Van Dyke, a name who we've talked about several times on the channel, and largely still an unknown in the college football realm, but I don't think that's going to remain so for very long. DeMarcus Van Dyke is known as a really solid recruiter, a very young guy, but he has been instrumental in the battle for Cormani McClain, and he is a big reason why Miami, if they sign Cormani McClain, would celebrate. DVD is instrumental in this battle. Cormani McClain has been very forthright that he has got really strong relationships with DVD, and though it'll be difficult to flip Cormani McClain from Miami because of the relationships he has with not only DVD but other members of the staff, when we look at the other 2 outside forces that have entered into this battle, they're notable, and they deserve some recognition. And we'll start with the Alabama Crimson Tide. And anytime Nick Saban and Alabama come knocking, you don't feel easy. Nick Saban is known for recruiting and recruiting the best talent in all of college football. Don't believe me? First and foremost, look at the class they just signed, where Nick Saban and Alabama have the number 1 recruiting class in the nation, and it is wild, top to bottom, how solid that class is. They are loaded with top 300 prospects, and it is very impressive. But secondly, Alabama boasts the most players on NFL rosters with 70, and finally, the highest paid safety in the league is an Alabama alum, Minkah Fitzpatrick. So if you're a defensive back and Nick Saban is pitching to you, that's going to be a tough pitch to say no to because you know the history. And even outside of the development, you know what Alabama does on a year-in, year-out basis. They are a team that will be competing for a spot in the college football playoffs seemingly every single year. Even though they didn't make it this year, they were right there. They were a top 10 team, and that just seems to be what to expect from the Alabama Crimson Tide. But this is not only a pitch where Nick Saban is going to be involved. In fact, Travaris Robinson, the cornerback coach, is a name to watch in this battle. Cormani McClain has talked about his relationships with DVD, but he's also talked about his relationships with Travaris Robinson, someone who is from Miami, so he's very familiar with the Florida area. On top of that, he coached for Miami, he coached for Florida, and he was a longtime defensive coordinator for South Carolina. We can talk about the development Nick Saban has had. We can talk about all of the names Nick Saban has worked with. But whenever you package Nick Saban and Travaris Robinson and they're both going after a prospect, that's a very tough pitch to say no to. Travaris Robinson has worked with the likes of J.C. Horn, Vernon Hargreaves, and he is a very established name as a cornerback coach. So if you're Cormani McClain and the GOAT, Nick Saban, is coming to you and saying, we'd love to have you, and Travaris Robinson is also on that pitch, that's a pitch you're going to listen to. Even if you don't flip to Alabama, that is certainly a pitch any prospect in the nation is going to listen to. But Alabama is not alone in this. The other team we need to talk about is a team that's been making waves in college football, and that's Coach Prime in Colorado. And Coach Prime absolutely has what it takes to flip the number 1 defensive back in a recruiting class. He did it with Travis Hunter, who is a longtime commit to Florida State. And on top of that, Coach Prime has roots to the state of Florida, which is going to help him in his recruiting efforts in the state. The kids in that state recognize his name. Though, to be fair, I think kids everywhere recognize his name, but it does help that he played for Florida State. So I'm very interested to see, and it really helps that he's considered one of the greatest NFL players of all time who played the defensive back position. So if you're a defensive back, that's a tough pitch not to listen to. Someone who's made the transition from high school to college successfully, and then made the transition from college to the NFL successfully, because that's the end goal for guys like Cormani McClain, is to make it to the NFL. And whenever Coach Prime is sitting there in your living room giving you a pitch, you listen, because he's gone through the process, and he did so successfully. And on top of that, much like with the Alabama Crimson Tide, it's not going to be singularly Coach Prime. In fact, Coach Mathis is another name I think is going to be big in this battle. Coach Mathis is from my hometown of Gainesville, Texas, but on top of that, like Coach Prime, made a successful jump from high school football to college football, and then went on to play in the NFL. But also, whenever we're talking about Colorado, I want to take it one step further. We've talked about Coach Prime. We know that he is a guy that moves the needle. In fact, whenever Coach Prime was announced that he was going to Colorado, I made a video, and the whole theme of the video, as most of my videos have a theme, is that Coach Prime is someone who moves the needle in college football. Whether that's moving the needle for coaches, whether that's moving the needles for players, it doesn't matter. He's someone who moves the needle. And don't believe me, look at what he's already done. Look at the hype Colorado is generating. Look at his ability to flip a Travis Hunter. And furthermore, look at his ability to get in Sean Lewis, have him forego being the head coach of Kent State to come be an offensive coordinator. That's someone who moves the needle. But it's not just going to be Coach Prime and Coach Mathis after Cormani McClain. Coach Charles Kelly is another name we have to watch, who came from the Alabama Crimson Tide, where he coached safeties, but he'll be the defensive coordinator for Colorado. And the reason he's a name to watch is twofold. First and foremost, this is another guy with roots to the state of Florida, as he was the defensive coordinator for Florida State some time ago. And secondly, Charles Kelly's an ace recruiter. If you look at his history when he was with the Alabama Crimson Tide, they used him to recruit multiple different positions. At the end of the day, this is a battle we have to watch, because whoever wins the sweepstakes for Cormani McClain is getting a phenomenally gifted prospect. McClain stands 6'2" and per 24/7 Sports Composite weighs in around 165 to 170 pounds. But whenever you turn on the film, he is such a talented prospect. I mean, truly, at the cornerback position is phenomenal, and someone's going to be very happy they get him into this class. Whether he sticks with his commitment to the University of Miami and ultimately signs on January 15th, or he flips to the University of Alabama or Coach Prime in Colorado remains to be seen. What we do know with full certainty, this is going to be a really fun battle to watch. Hop down in the comments, let me know where you think Cormani McClain goes. That's it. See ya.